Our next guest today is Major Ed Dean. Major Ed is the Corps Officer at the Maple Creek Community Church in Maple Creek. Last year, he actually also did double duty at Swift Current Ministry Unit, and he's going to be sharing a little bit today. Welcome, Major Ed.
It's my pleasure to join you this morning from Maple Creek. As Tim said, I've been the Corps Officer in Maple Creek for a number of years. I've been involved with the Salvation Army for 16 years, 14 of those in the beautiful community of Maple Creek. And then last year, taking on the role of Corps Officer in Swift Current with my wife. And that was a pleasure as well. In both communities, we have a food bank, a thrift store, and a church. Things have changed. Maple Creek is a community of 2,500 people, but we serve an area of roughly 11,000 kilometers with a number of Hutterite colonies in there. I believe there's 10, and 10 communities. And so it's a vast area, but it's a pleasure serving it in these communities. At the beginning of COVID-19, we had to make some drastic changes. Our food banks, how we did them, our church, our thrift stores. Our thrift stores closed for a number of months, but our food bank serving the communities was vitally important at that time. Our churches closed for the first time in 100 years. And so how do you do church and still reach your congregation? They were important things to hold on to. We've been able to do virtual church. It's not the same as sitting in a congregation, singing the songs, having coffee together. And so we've done things differently, thinking outside the box, as has been already said this morning. Some of it was doing church in a different way. Yes, we would record our messages, but some of it was doing church through a meal. Both communities had a community meal each week. We had to think of a way that we could deliver that community meal to the people that needed it. And so we have thought of different ways. Sometimes it was making the delivery to the seniors' residence, where they could then gather that meal at safe distancing. Other times it was making a bag lunch and putting it out on our free market. And that's been a wonderful way to reach those in our community that we may not necessarily have been able to reach. Those that are not used to coming and tapping into a food bank and saying, you know, I could use that little bit more. I could use a little bit of help. I don't need a food bank, or I'm not comfortable going to a food bank. Some of that was able to be done through the wonderful partnership of our Hutterite community. They have literally provided thousands of pounds of produce during this COVID time. When the outbreak happened in their communities, we were able to reach out because of the partnerships that have been built over the years and the relationships there. And so even when the news broke that there was some outbreaks in their communities, we called them to see if we could help them in their time of challenge. And as things progressed along, they were still providing to our communities the produce and stuff that was needed, of course, with safe distancing protocols in place. We wore masks, they wore masks. You can put it on a cart and we'll bring it in. And it's great that they were able to still be a part of their community and serving in that way. Our free market has reached out. We have seen everything on that market, from squash to yogurt to potatoes. 5,000 pounds of potatoes were given out in 48 hours. That's a lot of potatoes, and especially when you see that arrive. But through the many partnerships, our food bank never ran out in either location. And for the first while, we were doing hampers so that families had groceries because we wanted them to be safe. We have reached into community through some of our vulnerable people, vitally important to be protecting. Our ministry at one of the hotels, bringing food to them when the restaurants were closed, where they would normally be able to go and get their meal, was no longer available to them. And so how do you think outside the box and find a way that they will have food and stuff? And most of this was done with some gracious volunteers that came alongside us and said, I can do this, I can do this. And of course, we had to think, how do we keep people in our community safe? How do we keep our staff and volunteers safe? And so with all the protocols that were put into place, we were have been very successful in doing that. But it's with every precaution taken to make sure that all areas of our community are safe. During the pandemic, we checked on seniors. We checked on those in the hotels. We checked on those that are living in precarious places. We see them coming to pick up the lunch. They don't think that we notice them, but we do. They are our community. Those are the people whom the Salvation Army has been called to serve. And we take great honor in being able to serve them. Another area that we've been able to serve is with our backpack program, as you've seen in the videos. The backpack program is a wonderful program to be able to reach the families, to make sure that children are able to go to school with the needs and the supplies like every other child. This morning, as we gather in this way, we say thank you to our many partners. We thank you to those for the generosity of the gifts that have been given to us to be able to serve in our communities.
Thanks so much, Ed. Wow, there's, again, being in a rural area, there's so many things that fall in your lap that are very unique. One of the things I heard is the free market, how you started a free market to try to maintain the dignity of the clients, the people that actually need our help. How successful did you find the free market to be in actually reaching the people you're trying to that have food insecurity?
Oh, that has been very successful. We've even had volunteers come to the free market and say, can I take stuff to the other side of the city in Swift Current, where some of the seniors live that didn't have transportation to come and get from that free market. And so that was a very successful piece. It's still going on every day in both Swift Current and in Maple Creek. We have a free market. And I believe that it's serving a great purpose. People are accessing it. They are accessing our food banks. And we've been able to resource people with other services that we can provide them in this pandemic time. I think of, and I meant to mention it earlier, Our seniors that don't have the resources to go to medical appointments, sometimes they're 3 and 4 hours away. And we've been able to provide transportation to them to get to those medical appointments. And some of those appointments are very early in the morning or late in the afternoon into evening. And we're been able to come alongside them. That's been an important piece of what we do in community in Maple Creek.
Wow. Major Ed, I am so glad you are there. You're doing so many good and positive things. Uh, things that only happen when you're in a community for a long period of time. So thank you so much for your dedication.